Hey class, welcome back. This session we are going to talk about designing a program and the lab assignments. So our lab assignments are all about this Paycheck program, which the requirements is in this slide. So we want to ask the users for two pieces of data, the number of hours they worked and their pay rate. We are going to calculate how much their paycheck is, and the overtime is designed or we set the overtime pay to be 1.5 of their regular pay rate. Means if I am paid regularly $100 per hour, I'm going to be paid $150 per hour for overtime. We will pick a number between 5 and 25% as our tax rate, and we will calculate the taxes, we will calculate the gross pay, and then we will tell the user also how much they are going to pay net. Net equals to gross minus taxes, by the way. Scenario 1. So I like to first use, calculate, basically understand the mechanics of things first before I go and write the program. And so I'm going to give myself some examples. It's easier for me to wrap my head around it. I'm going to use a simpler scenario first, which has no overtime. Number of hours worked is 30 hours. The pay rate is $200. For engineers, it's actually not uncommon. Not everyone will get paid that way, but there are people who get paid that and more than that. Tax rate, I picked 10%. So let's see how to calculate the three outputs. For the gross pay, because it's within 40 hours, so it's just the pay rate times the hours worked. 30 times 200, which is 6,000. No overtime is 0. So together is $6,000. For taxes, we picked the 10% tax rate. So gross is $6,000 times 10% equals to 600 taxes. Net pay, gross pay minus the taxes, 600 minus 6,000 minus 600, which is equal to 5,400, and there should be a minus sign, and I am going to change it in when I export the slides for you. So let's think about a more complicated scenario where the hours worked is 60 hours, which means 20 hours are overtime. Pay rate 100 per hour, tax rate 20%. This time we will have to calculate the regular pay and the overtime pay. So regular pay is 40 hours times 100 means 4,000. Overtime is 60 minus 40 hours, which means there's 20 hours of overtime, times the regular pay is 100, and then times the overtime rate is 1.5. So it comes down to 3,000. So total gross pay is the regular pay plus the overtime pay. 4,000 plus 3,000 equals to 7,000. Taxes now. Taxes, the gross is $7,000. Tax rate this time is 20%. So it's 1,400. Net pay, 7,000 minus 1,400 equals to $5,600. So I want to talk about the variables that we are going to use in this program first before we go into it. So we are going to declare some variables which has a type of double. So remember in the P part program, we use something called int, which is an integer. But because hours worked and pay rate both can be, let's say, I work 3.75 hours. I mean, it happens, right? And the pay rate, I can be getting $10.75, let's say. So we want the variable to be able to hold not an integer but something with decimal points. So that's where double comes in. So double is the keyword that you will use to declare the type of the variables. So you see I have hours worked, I have pay rate, I have the gross pay and taxes and net pay. That's what we see earlier. And also we have the regular pay and overtime pay. You can tell me that regular pay should be spelled out the whole way through. For me, it's okay, as long as you can understand the program. So it's up to you how you want to declare your variables. So next, we have two numbers that actually would not change during the time of running this program, and so we would declare them as constants. Constant, like I just said, is something that would not change during the time of the program. So these are variables because they varies. If the user type in 100, then it became 100. If they type in 200, it's 200. But constants, they don't change. So let's say I picked a tax rate of 20%. So 20% is 0.2. Overtime rate is always 1.5 for this program. So let's start like doing a part of it first. I recommend doing it that way as well, because I think it's a good practice. So what we are going to do is to start from what we have from the Peapod program, because I think the structure is very similar. We are going to ask for input, we are going to do some calculation, we are going to do some outputs. So let's edit this program instead of writing the whole thing. So we start by saying, this is the Paycheck program, program assignment. Maybe we can say this is lab 1-1, 1-2. And the name and the date, I'm not going to change it. So the purpose is to calculate gross pay, taxes, and net pay, or in a way more accurately is to report input. Like we said, we are going to use actually what I'm going to do is to copy it. Okay, I have to do this to copy it. So I'm just going to copy and paste the variables here. And then what you can do actually is also highlight and then do a tab. Then all the lines will go, one level down. And then I'm going to, the input is, these are the inputs, right? So I'm just going to copy, Control C, and then Control V. I want to show you that I do take the time to make sure my comments make sense, and I will understand it later when I read the program. Honestly, the purpose is not actually the best, but you would do something better than I am doing. So, and then we need the constants, right? So we'll go back to the slides. we will copy and paste it, Control C, and then this is easier. So usually we put the constants in the beginning of the program, and you just tab it so that it lined up. So now we have all the variables that we need here. So let's change the user input line. So I think the first line is okay. It said, just hit return. It's just an instruction how to use the program. Enter the number of parts. So let's let us ask them what's their hours worked, right? So enter the number of hours you worked, and then would double click it, Control C, double click it, Control V, and then the next question is what's their pay rate. So I copy it first, and then enter the number of your pay rate. So we are going to do some calculation here, but we are not going to do anything at this point. So we will leave it out, just delete this line. And then here we will change the output values. So we are going to say, let's think about this. What should we say? Let's make it simple. Gross pay, or your gross pay is $, and then copy and paste. So very simple. And your, I think it's taxes. Sorry, I'm not like I like copy and paste because it's easier. Your taxes is this much, right? And then copy and paste again. Your net pay is, I believe, because I make it kind of similar, so I can do copy and paste again. So that looks kind of nice. But what will happen if we run it, right? The thing is, we didn't actually assign any numbers to this. What will happen is an error, I can tell you that. So let's try it. Well, what I mean by error, it just means that because we didn't input anything, so it will come out 0, which is pretty nice. It doesn't always happen because we didn't initialize the value of these variables. And then you see there's a complaint that these variables has not been used, but it's okay, it's just a warning, the program still runs, right? So I just want to make sure things works and look at the text to see if it makes sense, because this is basically user interface design. Press return after entering a number. Okay, good instruction. Enter the number of hours you worked, 5 hours. Enter the number of your pay rate. See, there's an error here. It kind of doesn't make sense. What's the number of pay rate? So let's change it. Enter your pay rate. And then let's also have a /r, that's why, /n, and then we will have a $sign afterwards. Yes. Now this is the output, I want to have one more line down here to kind of separate things. So I would say cout arrow arrow endl, which is a empty line. Now you learn something new. So let's run it again. Let's do some double number to also check it, right? Just random numbers. So you see we changed the line, what it says, and then we also added a empty line between the user input and our output. So that works perfect.